don't want to be strong like man who look pretty. I want to be strong like bitch that fight bears in the forest.
Welcome to another episode of Bitch vs. Bear with your hosts, me, Amber, and my bestie, Sydney. We are co-owners of Shield Maiden Training Co. And this is a show where we bitch, laugh, and chat about all things fitness related to women and the LGBTQIA plus community.
That is correct. And you didn't stumble.
I didn't stumble.
You did the whole thing.
I almost thought I was going to sneeze at one point.
We made it.
If
it makes it into the pre-reel, just me saying, bless you. Yeah. Cool.
So what are we doing this week? It's a new month.
It is. Oh my God. It's a new month. August. It's like the end of...
What?
Yeah. It's the end of summer.
No, wait.
Yeah. Yeah, it's August. Magic.
That did not register at all.
Yeah.
Definitely thought we were going to start July again.
Nope. It's August.
Great. Good times.
Yeah, good times. So we are going to be chatting about and kind of like looking into health and fitness disparities that plague women of color. I think it's important to note that while we don't identify as members of that group, and we are not attempting to like speak for all of the women of color in that group, we acknowledge that the disparities do exist.
Yes.
We had a little conversation ahead of this where I was like, I don't know if am I qualified to be talking about these things, but also like I know that I need to talk about these things. And then Amber responded with,
welcome to Allyship.
I was like, oh, got it. Right.
Yes. The what is it? Cognitive dissonance of trying to figure out how to advocate without feeling like you should be speaking about the topic.
Yes.
Yeah. I face that all the time as an ally.
Cool.
It's fun because, yeah, like you said, like we are not members of that community, but we are allies of it.
Yes.
So we should definitely be advocating for them and educating ourselves and others to advocate for them, but also towing the line of like what we know and can speak to without having those experiences ourselves.
Yes. I think I definitely understand it. And it is such a fine line of like, I don't want to take the voice away from and the experience of those people who can speak to it honestly and truthfully as like their lived experience, while also being in the group that is of advantage and knowing that I need to advocate and be the help the momentum of change.
Yes.
Not be the change, but help with the momentum of it.
Be part of the change. Like, you know, I feel like as members of the majority group, I don't know if that's right, but
yeah, it's
as people outside of the group, I think it is on us to make that change, to facilitate that change, to advocate for that change. It should not be just on the members of that group to force the change by themselves.
Right. Yeah.
Because that's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen. And it's such an interesting, especially because we are in a unique position where we are not necessarily the majority, right?
Well, yes.
Like, but we are in some cases, like we are of a minority group of like, of women who have been disadvantaged for a long time. And then like, you know, all it feels a little bit like people put it in a hierarchy. It's like,
yeah,
well, you're at least a white woman. And it's
yes. Like
yes,
there's that privilege.
There is that privilege. And I understand that, but I'm a white woman who is also identifies as LGBTQIA and all of the other things. So like, I don't like thinking about it like a hierarchy. It's like, no, I think things that benefit one group generally benefit the entirety of people who have been oppressed.
Yes.
So like,
yes, we all have to work together to make that change happen.
The advocacy for this will have a positive effect on just all women in general, right? Like
all women, all people of color, all minority groups.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so that's a long-winded way of saying we're going to jump into this topic with the understanding that we are advocating, and it is by no means something that is a lived experience for us. And also that this topic, we could really easily spend like lots
Forever.
of episodes on it, and we're going to try and do our best to cover things that we think that we can expand on. And
We're gonna cover the surface this month,
yes, yeah, it's
and
like
there
an
will
iceberg.
be other months when we cover this topic and go a little deeper.
Yeah, iceberg. This is just the tip. Just the tip, just for a second, just to see how it feels. If you can name that movie, you will get bonus points, and I will send you like coffee or something.
All right. So health disparities. Goodness, we're off to a good start. Health disparities among women of color refer to the unequal and often adverse health outcomes experienced by women from racial and ethnic minority groups when compared to their white counterparts. These disparities are the result of complex interactions between various social, economic, and environmental factors.
So many.
So many.
So many disparities, so many interlocked with all of those things. So this topic, like I said, is going to be very hard. We're going to kind of take glancing blows at some of these because it is so inextricably linked.
Yeah. I feel like that's probably why we've waited like almost a year before diving into this topic.
Yeah, before even broaching this topic. Yeah.
It's a tough one.
It is a tough one. So, addressing health disparities among women of color requires a multifaceted approach that involves policymakers, healthcare providers, community organizers, and individuals. Strategies may include increase to affordable and culturally competent healthcare services, addressing social determinants of health, promoting health education, and preventative care.
Yeah, so
that's
important.
a huge one where we intersect as like the fitness kind of side of things. It's like there's a lot of preventative healthcare that is done outside of healthcare settings.
Yeah.
And actively combating racism and discrimination within the healthcare system. So that's going to be a huge thing.
Yes.
So by acknowledging and addressing these disparities, we can start to work towards achieving health equity for all women, regardless of their racial or ethnic background.
Fantastic.
Yes, we want that.
Yeah.
Some of the key factors contributing to health disparities among women include some of the things that we're going to go into detail. Again, these are glancing blows.
Yes. Yes, obviously there is a lot more nuance and depth to this topic and all the things we're going to cover in this episode. We do not have the time.
No, it would be a 3-hour long
experience to
3-hour long podcast.
And nobody wants that.
And nobody wants that.
Nobody wants to hear us talk for that
Joe
long.
Rogan. Just like
Okay, so first off, we want to acknowledge the socioeconomic disparity. Women of color often face higher rates of poverty, limited access to quality education and employment opportunities, which can impact their ability to access healthcare and can lead to poorer health outcomes.
I think the key in there that that quality education, we spent a couple episodes last month talking about affordable quality education for children and like starting really young. And I think that's one of those things where this is a huge factor. It's like, okay, it's socioeconomic, but like starting really young, if there isn't that access, like we're not putting people on a good footing from the get-go.
Right? And that's so important. Like you need to, it has to start young to be, fully effective.
It is. And so I think that for me, I'm like, okay, that could be an area where we advocate for change because especially you and I having a background in education, it's something that we understand, we know, and we can actually speak towards.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't have a background in like healthcare in the traditional sense, but I
cannot speak much to that.
No. Yeah. Another disparity that women of color often face is the just access and utilization of healthcare. So there's so many barriers to accessing healthcare services due to things like lack of health insurance, language barriers, cultural differences, and then the discrimination within the healthcare system.
Yeah.
Which I think we go into a little bit at
Yeah.
maybe down below, but if nothing else, I think a good kind of tangible understanding is like women, there's all kinds of discrimination in healthcare.
Uh-huh.
A very notable example is, this is bad. I don't remember which Williams sister it was, the tennis pro, when she had, was it her first child or her second child? I think it was her second child. And she had told them like she had a really hard birth the first time. There were a lot of things. She was in a lot of pain. And when her second child came, they didn't believe her.
Ugh.
And she almost died. And she's like, because so many factors, including discrimination within the healthcare system of like, you're just, you're over exaggerating your pain and your issues. And we are the medical professionals and we know better.
You don't.
Right? Like,
because you don't listen to your patients. Yeah. And this is a major issue for all women. And like, I know we're talking specifically about women of color right now, but it is a major issue in the healthcare system of physicians not believing women's pain is real. I think, what was it? I've been reading something online, and I don't remember the exact context, but there was like this hospital where like the nurse or somebody was like stealing the pain medication and like replacing it with whatever. And so like this whole group of women received no pain medication for, I don't remember what the procedure was, but it was definitely one that we actually got pain medication for.
Oh my gosh.
And like they kept telling their doctor, like, this is not right. Like something is very, very wrong. And he's like, no, you're fine.
You're getting pain meds.
And it's like, no,
but I'm not.
I'm not. Like it's that disconnect between physicians and the women they're treating, where they're like, no, you're fine. Like your pain isn't real. Like, no, it is very real. Like we're not little baby men who like get a paper cut and die, but like,
yeah,
it's still real.
It's still real.
We still experience pain. Ugh. Anyways, okay. So yeah, so what we've been talking about, discrimination and racism within the healthcare system. So this persistent racial and ethnic discrimination can lead to chronic stress, anxiety, and other mental health issues, which in turn, as we know, can affect physical health.
Yes.
So racism within the healthcare system can also lead to disparities in the quality of care received.
Just one big cycle of that.
Yeah. It's a cycle of bad.
So we just glanced over it, but this is a huge one for women of color and specifically Black women in America. That
America.
Yeah, maternal health disparities. And I wanted to expand on this one just a little bit because of all of our conversations last month with giving birth, pregnancy, child rearing, all of those things. So women of color experience higher rates of maternal mortality and morbidity compared to white women.
Yikes.
If you have been on the internet, you've probably seen a study. Like it's everywhere. So these disparities in prenatal care, access to maternal health services, and postpartum support really just exacerbate this disparity. I think it's something like it's 25, you're 25% more likely as a Black woman to die during childbirth in a first world country.
Are we really though? Can we still be classified as that?
I mean, and that's staggering.
It's like absolutely bananas.
You can lose your life in childbirth in a hospital setting. Like this isn't people who are having at-home childbirths. This isn't like we're in a, in
the backwoods,
1500s. There's no midwife, and like
yeah. It's absolutely mind blowing.
Yeah,
with all the advances we've made in medical care, that this is happening.
That statistic. And I'm so curious. I think, as we go along in this month, I'm curious about like the postpartum support, because I have a feeling, because here in America, we definitely rely on the kind of the family unit, as we, delved into last month. And, there's a lot of cultural differences. And I just am so curious about, okay, what is the success rate and what's the postpartum support like?
Yeah.
Because maybe it's great. Maybe once they get out of the traditional healthcare setting and they get home, they're like, oh, thank God. I'm curious, because I know that in the healthcare setting,
It's not good.
it's not good.
Yeah. And I mean, if, like we talked about a few minutes ago, like if all these things are happening and it is a detrimental to, folks' mental health, like how is that exacerbated by childbirth and postpartum and not getting the care that they need?
Tip of the iceberg.
Right? Yeah. There's so much more. It's an onion. Layers and layers.
Now I want to go watch Shrek.
So environmental factors also play a factor here. Play a role. Are a factor?
All of the above.
So women of color are more likely to live in neighborhoods with limited access to green spaces, healthy food options, and safe environments, which can contribute to health disparities.
I have a big section here because
I gave you that section.
Yeah.
Felt like you had a lot to say there.
So one of the reasons that these environmental factors are actually even on the table as a disparity is because of the practice of redlining.
Oh, yes.
And I'm sure we've all heard the term. We were probably fed it in some context in history class and things like that, like glancing blow of like, oh, this thing happened, but now we've solved it.
It's fine.
Like, we don't do it anymore.
Bullshit.
Okay. So what is redlining? The term originated from the practice of marking red lines on maps, like physical red lines on maps.
Physical maps? What?
Yeah, to delineate areas considered too risky for investment, aka lending practices by mortgage, often because they had significant populations of minority residents, particularly African Americans.
What?
So historically, redlining was widespread in the United States during the 20th century, particularly between the 1930s and the 1960s. It was
shocking.
Explicitly carried out by government agencies, lenders, and insurance companies as a way to enforce racial segregation and deny economic opportunities to people of color. Under redlining, neighborhoods with high minority populations were systematically deemed high risk or hazardous by lenders and were denied access to mortgage loans and other financial services. So that's all going on. The result is home ownership opportunities were severely limited to minority communities, perpetuating racial segregation and wealth disparities. The consequences of redlining continue to be felt today, as we have discussed, right?
Yes.
So many of the neighborhoods redlined in the past still face economic challenges, lower property values, and reduced access to essential services and resources. So actually having emergent care, like a hospital within their kind of like county or district, pre-K, all of those kinds of things.
Affordable and high quality education.
Parks.
I love parks, man.
So this historical practice has contributed to the racial wealth gap and has really just perpetuated this like systemic inequalities in housing, education, and just like overall access to opportunities. Like this is a very tangible thing where we can say this had a direct result, and like there's not just a correlation there, right? Like we don't have to be like, well,
doesn't take a lot of mental gymnastics to figure that one out.
Yeah, that's a really tangible, like, we did this thing and this is the result.
Yeah.
I mean, and so many things stem from that, right? So like previously redlined communities, food deserts, so the inability to have like good, healthy affordable options for food.
Yeah.
Having to travel really far to find those options is a factor from redlining. I mean, the huge thing for me is like the parks. Like, there's
Yeah.
so much data. It's been really, really hot these last few weeks
Yeah.
everywhere. And one of the things that you can see is redline districts. There's not a lot of green space, which tends to be a lot of like brick or concrete or asphalt, which increases the heat. So those
Right.
areas tend to be 10 to 25 degrees warmer than their like suburban counterparts. And
It's wild.
they did a study recently and have a project going on in Boston where they go in and they pick one street and they do plantings, and they hammer up a bunch of concrete and do a
Yes.
bunch of plantings, and then they track the temperature decrease over time, which is fascinating.
It is super fascinating.
Hey, if we just simply do this, I say simply, like it takes a lot
It's
of
not
resources.
simple.
It's not simple, but there is a way to help reduce heat exposure to communities and like beautify spaces and make it more enjoyable and like cover a wide swath of things by
Just
taking
planting more green space.
Yeah, by planting trees and flowers and adding like landscaping.
Yeah, it's a very simple concept and makes so much sense. But yeah, it takes a lot of effort, I'm sure, to actually get it done.
Yeah, a lot of coordinating and things like that. And people always find a reason not to, right? Like, oh, where are those resources better spent? Well, I think they're pretty well spent
Right.
there. Like, there's a very tangible thing where if you do X, Y will happen.
Right? Yeah, I'm sure that we could put a few less resources into militarizing everything and maybe plant more green space.
Yeah.
Okay, so we do have a resource for those of you who are maybe looking to learn more or maybe dive a little deeper. Mama might be better off dead. Is that right?
Yeah. Mama might be better off dead.
This is a book published in 1993 that delves into the lives of an African American family living in Chicago and their struggles with the healthcare system, which we can imagine were many. It's a call to action urging readers to confront the deep-rooted issues within the healthcare system and advocate for meaningful reforms. The book challenges the notion of equal access to healthcare and encourages society to confront the realities faced by marginalized communities, particularly women of color, in their pursuit of health and wellness.
Yes, it's a fantastic book. It's a recommendation of Shelby. She read it actually in college. She has a background in healthcare and things like that. And I remember just it's fascinating. Also, more importantly, it's still relevant today, and it was published 30 years ago.
That can't be right.
The book published in 1993.
30 years ago?
Yeah. That math checks out.
I don't think it does.
So if you're interested in learning more, definitely check it out. It's worth a read. It's fascinating.
Who's the author? We didn't have the author written down.
We're gonna look it up. 1 by 1. We're looking it up.
What is it?
Mama might be.
Might be.
Laurie Kaye Abraham.
Oh, there. Laurie Kaye Abraham. Great. Mama might be better off dead. Check it out. I'm putting that on my to-be read list. I will also put that in the notes.
Awesome. Yay, we'll link to it. Yes. If you can find it at a local bookstore, do that. But Amazon, I'm sure also.
Yeah, Amazon does have it. That's what popped up.
Yeah. So
let's support your local bookstore.
That's a whole nother subject.
It is.
Well, that was kind of a downer episode, but like downer in the way that like it's been 30 years and that book is still relevant. That makes me like a little sad.
Downer in that it's a very frustrating topic.
Yes.
Because it's so difficult to make the changes that need to happen.
Yes. Again, because it's that multifaceted approach and it's like you can change one segment, but that isn't going to correct all of the issues that have arisen from from various practices and thought processes. So
Yes.
it takes a lot of coordination. And we're hoping to advocate for that and be allies.
Yes. I get to be an ally. Yay! It's fun and frustrating.
Fun and frustrating. An alliteration if I've ever heard one.
I do love a good alliteration.
Well, that's a wrap for this week's episode.
Woohoo!
So we have some friends and listeners who have been sending some messages and questions about like certain topics that are of interest to them. And we thought it would be really cool if you'd like to discuss something or have us discuss it and research it and do those things, then you should submit this to us via Instagram.
Yeah.
I think
at Shield Made in TC.
At Shield Made in TC. And then in the whole month of October, we will start to pick different submissions and explore and expand on those topics.
Yeah.
So that way you're getting to hear something that you're interested in. Or maybe learn about something that you hadn't really considered from another listener.
Yes.
So do that. We need all of those submissions by the end of September. I don't have a good
mid-September would be great.
Mid-September, because I have to research them.
Yes.
We'll pick a date and we'll give you that our deadline.
September 15th.
September 15th. All your submissions need to be in by September 15th to Shield Made TC on Instagram. Give us a cool topic. We want to research it. We want to talk about it. Well, I do.
I'm down.
Amber's along for the ride.
Always.
I'm going to make her research one.
I've written some of the episodes.
I know.
But yes, I will research one.
Yeah, right. We're going to actually, let's throw Amber under the bus. Everybody send in things to make Amber research. That's it. That's all I got.
All right, great. Cue music.
Cue music.